Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Acting Speaker. My question was without notices to the Prime Minister, otherwise known as the ad hoc Minister for Pay TV, and the man who's done more to disadvantage this country than any other single Australian.
Order. The Leader of the Opposition...
I refer the Prime Minister.
The member for
I refer the Prime Minister.
The member for Page.
You guys are fast becoming irrelevant, let me tell you.
The Leader of the Opposition will ask his question.
I refer the Prime Minister to his previous answer.
I'll just ask the Leader of the Opposition to resume his seat. The member for Page will cease interjecting. The member for the Northern Territory will cease interjecting. The Leader of the Opposition.
I refer the Prime Minister to his previous answer about the role of market interest rates in propping up the Australian dollar. I ask the Prime Minister, is it a fact that since his government announced a huge budget deficit on the 18th of August, the 60-day bank bill rate has risen, the 90-day bank bill rate has risen, the 180-day bank bill rate has risen, and also in light of the fact that the current account deficit for July blew out to $1.9 billion, can the Prime Minister rule out further increases in market interest rates in order to prop up the exchange rate?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, you see, again I make the point. This is someone who believes in laissez-faire economics, who says the market should rule, the market's right, but when the market speaks about things like the value of the Australian dollar, by its view about commodities, commodity prices, by its views about competing interest rates on offer around the world, about its reflections upon German monetary policy, when it makes these things, when they make these things, then he says they are wrong. He says they're wrong. They must be. You see, and he wants a policy response to their action. He says they're wrong. It's like the total confusion on trade. It's laissez-faire. It's laissez-faire trade, laissez-faire policies within Australia. Let the market bear. Let the market rule. Let the market charge what the traffic will bear. But outside of Australia, it's all regulation. It's trade deals. It's intervention. It's making arrangements. There's no role for the market there. No role for the market there. The thing is, Mr Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, as on these things, not consistent and is, as always, mostly confused. And the fact of the matter is, in the last few weeks, Mr Speaker, in the last few weeks, commodity prices have fallen. The various Australian indexes published by the various institutions, the Australian Reserve Bank, the Commonwealth Bank, on commodity prices have shown a marked fall. The markets have noticed this, and they've made a correction. They've made a correction via the exchange rate. But you don't think their correction's right. I mean, in your mindless arrogance, you don't think that the market's right. And the notion is, the judgment is, Mr Speaker, if the dollar is lower, ipso facto, on the basis of Leader of the Opposition's argument, it's bad for Australia, where in fact large sections of Australian industry have been calling for a lower dollar for a long period of time. And can I say, Mr Speaker, that the decline in the dollar has occurred over the course of this year. Over the course of this year. And the market's taken note of all these things. But to try and say that with a budget deficit of 3.3% of GDP, with a structural budget balance sitting there in the 90s, with a very tight outlays position, with an inflation rate of 1.5 to 2%, that in some way the markets are sort of giving up on Australia, is of course a distortion, and not only that, it's doing what the Leader of the Opposition normally does, is run Australia into the ground every time he gets a chance. That's his stock in trade. As someone said today, all he ever does is climb up on the difficulties of Australians rather than complimenting them for what they've done, and understanding that there are a lot of clever people out there doing a lot of clever things who make judgments about things, and they may not necessarily accord the Leader of the Opposition, but as we've noticed, Mr Speaker, if people disagree with him, of course they're marked down and put on a list.